economy.
You know, you just heard what I noticed about politics is the way that the two parties not just have different positions, but they talk about different things.
Okay.
And what you talked about really had nothing to do with what he was talking about. And what you talked about had nothing to do. You talked, and I would just, there's a couple of facts that have to be checked here. You talked about this great recession that Obama was slow from coming back from. Whose great recession was it? Okay?
Yeah.
All right, just a minute.
Okay,
just a minute.
That's very fair.
Okay, no.
That's very
no,
fair.
I have another point.
Just
You
give
talk
me
about
a
the
chance to
Shiite
respond.
crescent, which Abdullah talks to me about too, the president, the king of Jordan. Sure, I've heard that argument. I don't like it either. But who gave them? Who gave them Iraq? It was a Sunni-led country. We gave it to the Shias. So you're making the case against the policy of W.
Well,
you are.
Okay, can I respond to what you
Sure.
said? When Ronald Reagan became president, we'd been in and out of recessions for 6 years. Deep recessions under Jimmy Carter. We had 23% interest rates and 13% inflation.
So we're going back to Reagan.
And so what did Reagan do? Reagan never blamed it on Carter. Reagan grew an economy at 4.8.
What?
4.8%.
He never blamed it on Carter?
No.
I was on the plane.
Whoa.
You're out of your mind.
When Reagan was trying to rebuild the economy, he didn't say this is all Carter's fault. He said we're going to do the right policy and it's going to
Sure,
work.
I know. But
And
what
it
did he
did
say? Are
work.
you better off than you were 4 years ago? That was a pretty good line.
And it was absolutely true.
Of course.
And it's not
So he
true
blamed it on
today.
him.
The average American
Okay.
family makes
Okay.
less today than when George Bush
Okay.
was
Are
president.
you in the market?
Regrettably.
No. To check where you were in 09 and where you are now. I'm telling you, it's about 3 times. Look,
Read Larry
if the
Summers'
Republic, you guys
column
would
today.
you'd be doing stuff in the end zone like we've never seen. If the Republican Party had tripled the stock market, you wouldn't care about the little people and income
13 million
inequality.
jobs.
You'd say, we got rich and we love it.
5.1%
And you know you
unemployment
would.
rate. We're
Anyway,
not
but why don't
where
you
we
guys
should
talk about
be.
security? I gave you a chance to respond to him. This is what the two parties do. You don't talk about the fact you kissed off the Hispanic vote or the minorities are going the other side. And you don't talk about his argument about the Shia crescent. Why don't you both talk about the same thing for 3 minutes? Talk about what he said. Talk about what he said. Have we lost the Middle East because of bad foreign policy, of pulling out of Afghanistan, pulling out of Iraq too quickly? Have we blown it by not enforcing the red line against Assad? Were these mistakes that were all responsible to this administration or not?
And now they're talking about
No,
bashing
is that right?
China, the second
No, just stick to the point of the
economy.
Middle East, which is the reason we're talking on the front pages
Chris,
today.
I mean, I agree with your position.
It isn't a position. I just want you to answer him.
What?
And you gotta answer her. You
that
guys
the
talking
Iranian
to-
nuclear treaty is going to make things worse in the Middle East.
If we do nothing, it's making the Middle East bad
Yeah,
because
if
Iran
we
is
do-
a bad player regardless.
The problem of
And
doing
we're not- this
nothing
is
that
not
you're not
about
talking
trust.
about, the biggest thing in this treaty is to give the Iranians tens of billions of dollars. There is nothing else. America gets nothing out of this treaty.
We get to slow down their
We don't.
capability
We
for the
don't.
next 10 to 15 years. We get to reimpose sanctions if they don't comply. We get a lot out of this treaty. What we don't want right now is to explicitly say that we're going to go to war. But the president has said if we have to keep a military option on the table to ensure that they comply with it, that they don't get the nuclear weapon, we will do
This
that.
is the same president that said we're going to be relentless in keeping terrorism down. Several years
Why
ago,
don't you
You know,
respond to?
I will respond exactly to what she said.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that happens in this treaty is that we get nothing that we set out as our goals when we started, but we give the Iranians tens of billions of dollars. And that is going to change the Middle East. It's going to change their relationship with the Gulf states, Saudi and the small
they're
states.
not gonna
It's
get
going to
that
change.
money if
Oh,
they- if
Donna,
they
they have
mislead
said
aid.
publicly, after John Kerry gave us the impression, this is
So
we're
what's-
going to
so-
we're going to
so
control
your
the
alter-
ballistic
your-
missiles.
your alternative
There's nothing
right now is to just
Iran has said publicly. Well, there's nothing in this treaty that's being done. They just said publicly this week, this has no effect on our right to buy ballistic missiles. This has no effect on our right to buy and sell weapons. But we are going to give them $50 or $60 billion that they will invest in terrorism all through that region. And we got real allies there. Israel, but also Saudi Arabia,
Jordan, we have a lot, and no one,
and
no-
they're the ones
and-
who are bearing the
and
burden.
No one has stated that we're going to renege on our support and our strong
I think if you ask
Involvement in the
Israel,
Middle
they would
East.
think you've already reneged.
Okay, we're
well,
engaging
I
here.
disagree.
Okay, let me
This
ask you
president
about.
has been
Let me
very
ask
good
you
to
to
Israel,
respond
and he will continue to be very
to what
good.
Donna raised, and we all talk about it in politics. I don't know why we haven't talked about it yet, because it does have to do with who's going to run this country.
What's that?
We're going through demographic change in this country. We
We're
just
going
are. Demographic change.
Major.
It is not a white country. It's a mixed country. It's diverse, and becoming increasingly diverse. Most of the country is, certainly in most of the big states. And we have a country which is 13% of the electorate is now Hispanic. Not people here, voters. And they got a lot of kids who haven't become legal, and many are legal. People here whose kids will be legal. It's going to be a big portion of our population. And it looks to be like your chief candidate this year is dissing these people. Dissing them as rapists, building a wall. I don't know how high a wall has to be to keep rapists out, but it's ridiculous. It's about a wall and rapists. And everybody sits around and listens to it as if it's a reasonable position to take. Is your party going to pay for this?
Well, let me just say,
No,
my,
are they gonna
my
pay for
own view is that Trump's position on this is totally ludicrous. First of all, I believe we need immigration reform. A majority of Republicans in the House believe we need immigration reform. A majority of Republicans in the Senate have voted for immigration reform.
I agree.
I do think we can get a better bill than the Senate bill. But the fact of the matter is, on immigration, we couldn't have a worse system than we
Why
got
doesn't he
now.
bring the vote up? Why doesn't Speaker Boehner allow the House to vote on the only immigration reform bill there is?
I'll tell you why, as you know
Same
already.
reason
Yeah, but
they
why
took-
not?
they're
How do you
taking
argue in a
3 votes on the
democracy not to
Iran
bring it
deal.
up?
He
When,
doesn't control his
last
caucus.
June, they were going to bring the vote up, and that is when all these Central American children started crossing the border, and a lot of people in this country thought, well, the administration's not trying to stop it. And Boehner was afraid we would not have the votes because of the reaction to that. And the next thing you know, the president is declaring unilaterally, just like this treaty with Iran, where a majority of both houses of Congress will have voted against it, and the president will put it into effect by executive action. But he also put into effect by executive action in the fall.
But you're missing a key point here, which the elephant in the room, and that
Well,
is
I'm telling
the,
you, Boehner
the
didn't want to
Republican
bring
Party
it up
will
and
not vote for
lose.
any bill that allows for people to eventually get on a path to citizenship. Even if it says we're going to get everybody to
His caucus
E-Verify,
will not allow him
and
to
they
do
will
it.
not. The right-wing part
They
of your
will
party
not
won't let you
allow
vote on a reasonable bill.
And the president
There
waited
would
for
have
the
been a vote in
Republicans
June,
to
but
act.
for the Central American children, I will say for myself, I look at the polling, and a vast majority of Republicans believe that we ought to have legalization, that we're not going to deport 12 million people, that we're not going to put them in jail,
Yeah.
and there needs to be a way for people here illegally to come in, confess that they entered illegally, pay a fine, pay their court costs, get put on probation if they hadn't committed any other crime, be here legally for the extent of the probation, and at the end of that period of time, then they ought to be able to apply for citizenship, not a special path, but apply. And about 70% of Republican voters agree with that. But a lot of the core, a lot of the base people are still agitated about it. There's no question that if we had Donald Trump's position on immigration in the election next year, it would make it vastly harder for us to win the White House. I just don't think we will.
Do we have something? I hate the phrase intractable because I'm American and I am a real optimist. And I don't get how we're going to get ISIS without putting huge numbers of combat American troops into that region again. And I don't even know who we clear the land for. We take back a quarter acre. Who do we give it to? I have to tell you, I don't know the answer. Do you? Does anybody in the American political scene know how we deal with this growing caliphate in Iraq and in Syria that's growing? How do we deal with it? Nobody down there is going to stop it, it seems.
We've been making it harder, not easier. I think our Arab and Israeli allies over there thought that we were going to make a serious move when Obama said we're going to destroy them, we're going to...
Well, bombing them. The
He had a
bombing
little
missions haven't
trilogy.
worked.
You know,
And then
we're
we
blaming
never did
President
anything.
Obama. The Iraqi prime minister, who has all but disbanded his cabinet, he doesn't even want any Sunni politicians near him. How are we going to solve problems with boots on the ground,
Well, we
with
could've-
more of our blood and treasure, if the Iraqis won't take responsibility for
I didn't
making
mention our
their
boots on the ground. What I said was we did
Government more
not give to
inclusive.
the Kurds what they thought they were going to get. We did not give to the Saudis what they thought we were going to give them, what that they thought we were talking about. And we
What do you
didn't
want to do?
I think we ought to load up our allies over there and help them get serious.
Who's willing to go in?
Yeah, who's
If
gonna put
we're
boots
there
on
to
the
back
ground?
them up.
What do you mean by this is
now
talk?
with air power and serious
We are there with
weapons.
air power. The
We're
Saudis
there.
are marching.
$4 or
The
$5 billion.
Jordanians.
The
Come
air
on.
power we've used there is infinitesimal
Well,
compared
because,
to what.
but you know
what
the
could be
problem.
done.
You need people on the ground to guide those attacks. You can't just start bombing a country like
They'll be bombing
what's his
Why
name?
don't-
Trump wants to
Why
do.
don't we give serious weaponry to the Kurds? Why don't we give them more armor? Why don't we give them more artillery? Why don't we give them more capacity to do for themselves? They thought we were going to, and we didn't.
But they're not going to take back Sunni lands, which you talked about a few moments ago. They're not going to protect that. They're going to grab Kurdistan and try to build a country,
That's
which
right.
we would all do too. And the Turks are scared to death of that.
I don't think you're right about they won't take
We
back Sunni
cannot
lands.
solve the internal political and cultural differences with our boots on the
Okay, let's try a moment of confession.
Uh-oh. I'm Catholic. Be careful, man. I have already,
I know you've been as
made an
confessional.
appointment
I
to
think
see the Pope,
occasionally
and I need 2
political
hours.
people who are really smart, like you two.
All right.
Arthur Schlesinger, one of my, I used to think he was too left, but I think he was really smart. Arthur Schlesinger said politics is essentially a learning profession, that you do learn, and you have to learn every day. There's not a little manual that says how to be a politician. Hillary Clinton's got to learn it, even though she's a pro. Every day got to learn something new. Obama's got to learn it, though he sometimes should probably learn harder, but he's a smart guy. And too cool for school occasionally, I would say, would be my, even though I'm an Obama guy, I think he's got a little bit of aloofness with the people. Hurts. Doesn't hang out with senators, doesn't like their company. That's hurt him. He makes it pretty clear he's not one of the boys. It's hurt him. It's hurt him with all these bills. So let's start in that spirit. Haley, what lessons did we learn from the W. Bush administration on Mideast policy?
What lesson we learned from?
The period of George W. Bush from 2001 to 2009. What did we learn about our security and what are smart moves and are not smart moves?
Well, I think we learned to be sure you've got your intel right. Don't rely on the British and others for the weapons of mass destruction. That was the biggest problem that they had. But I think the other thing we learned is that Bremer, when he went in, reversed the Army's plan to recreate as the basis for the National Security Force of Iraq a junior officer, senior NCO of the Ba'athists, to put them so that there would be a government there around which to build.
So
and Bremer
true.
stopped it.
Thank you.
And I think that was the start of real trouble. We had the surge and kind of got back to even. But then in the elections, we elected a Shia president
They
who
did.
just simply wouldn't touch to anybody else. You know, you were talking about al-Hadi. He's better than the last one. Isn't that a terrible thing to say?
And Maliki.
I know.
Yeah,
Maliki.
Maliki was
Thank
terrible.
you for that, because I think that's something we all agree on. The de-Baathification program, which was an ideological move by the neocons, it had nothing to do with our national interest to say we're going to take the entire Saddam army away and get rid of it. And what did they all end up doing? Joined ISIS. That's their officer corps. It
so
was
I-
absolutely suicidal for us politically.
I thought that was where Bush really messed up. I thought
Was
the
that Bremer's call? Who made that call?
Bremer?
Yeah. The guy with the tuxedo on and the work boots.
Yeah, Bremer's call. But then the Army got told it by Bremer.
Yeah.
Then we got back to even with the surge, and then we announced under the new administration we're pulling out, and they just
Okay.
Well,
waited.
we
Don-
had the
Don, in
status
that
of
spirit,
forces
what were the
agreement.
mis-
We
what
had
were- what
the
did you
status
learn
of
from-
forces agreement
What
that,
did you learn? What have you learned under the last 7 years?
He wasn't even signed under President Bush, so I mean, we couldn't keep our troops there without the status of forces agreement, and that, of course, the president ran twice, and he made it very clear that he wanted to bring our brave men and women home. Now, what did you? I'm sorry.
I know you're pausing here. Do what he did. What did you learn?
Well,
the
first
last
of all,
7 years
you never put a red line, and you never say, I am drawing a line, and then you back up, okay?
And that was Syria.
That's Syria. That was my deal. Because, you know, I'm all like, if I say it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
So let's, I think this has been great. And
That was a mistake.
I'll tell you, I want to go through all the questions here. You give quick answers because I want everybody here who wrote a question to get an answer. That's part of my deal. So just be quick. You don't have to both answer the same question. What will be the impact on the 2016 election if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee? You can do it quick.
Bad.
If there's a
Well, can I say something? You know, Hale and I grew up in an era where candidates would spend 30, 40% of their time raising money, another 20, 30% of their time doing rallies. Donald Trump spends 90% of his time on television, on cable TV. I mean, he doesn't
Live on cable television.
He doesn't have to work the crowds. He doesn't have to get the ones and the twos and the threes. When I was coming up through politics, and I'm sure Haley and Chris, we had to have ones. Ones is that you committed to vote for X. Number two, you're leaning, but if you call me again, come to my living room.
I
might
love it, you're
support
teaching it.
And then three was like, guess what? They were at the other side, lose them.
Don't go near them. Don't rouse them up.
That's right, don't rouse them up. Donald Trump is rewriting the entire political rule book. So this is funny, and I'm enjoying it, Haley.
That was my short answer.
Okay, here's follow-up for you. If Trump wins Iowa and New Hampshire, which he's doing again, would you see the Republican establishment begin to distance themselves even more, or do you believe they would begin to back him? Would they just fall in line?
I just think that's very unlikely. But
But
look,
this is an if
I
question.
can tell you this. The best thing Donald
It's
Trump...
unlikely he
the
wins
the
Iowa and
best-
New Hampshire?
I think it's unlikely he will win Iowa and New Hampshire. The best thing that Trump has done for himself is to say he would not run as a third-party independent candidate. Republicans do not want an Obama third term. And Clinton, even though she's been distancing herself from President Obama by saying that she would support his treaty, but not as much as he wants her to,
You know, the days
fact-
when
the
women
fact
have
that-
to
the
follow
fact of
men
it
to the
is that
kitchen is over.
Every Republican knows, Chris, that a third-party candidacy by Trump is the same thing as what we had in 1992, automatically elects the Democrat. So I do think that's one thing Trump has done that is productive.
Let
Can
me
I
ask
be-
you,
can
Donna,
I
about
speak in
the...
defense of Donald Trump?
But this is going to be sarcastic.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I've been to Iowa. I've been to New Hampshire. I've been to these places already. And you know what? It's real. See, I don't like to insult the American people, especially if they feel something very strong. They feel strongly about something. They feel strongly about Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a following. And he's also putting people on the ground now in Iowa, New Hampshire, that knows how to get people to the caucus and knows how to get
Are
them
they
to the poll.
volunteers or paid?
They are volunteers.
Wow.
These people are in love. I was going to say a bar. I didn't say that, did I? No. I was in North Carolina in Pinehurst. I mean, it is a Republican county. And this woman walked up to me with the same kind of enthusiasm I saw 8 years ago about President Obama. And she said, she was a white female waitress. She said, "I'm for Donald Trump." And I didn't know what to do. I was struggling. She said, "And I'm going out and register and vote." And I'm just... So this Trump thing is real. I thought at first, you know what, this is the Republican, you know, this is their Howard Dean moment, this is their Gary Hart. No, he is real. So get used to it.
Haley, let me ask you about this. Do you think Bill Clinton out on the campaign trail? No, but let's take it to a security issue. Hillary Clinton's there. She's president of the United States. Very possible. I still think she's the best bet to be the next president, and all across the field. She's there. Hell's broken loose. It's Putin. Putin's up to something, whether he's going to really claim Ukraine or he's going for the Baltic states, something really freaking scary. Does she bring Bill down to the Oval Office and work with him, or does she keep him upstairs? What do you bet?
Well, the thing
Should
I
you bring
know,
him down in the room,
The thing I know,
in the sit room?
the thing I know is that they have made a decision and been very public about it that she is not going to try to take the same path to the White House that he took, that she's going to run left.
Okay.
And her people have said publicly they are not going to try to run up the middle like Bill did, that they think they'll do
Okay,
better
that's politics.
by running left.
But what about when it gets real? Is he in the room with her? What's your gut tell you? Does she want him in the room with her? We all know Hillary as much, maybe not as well as you do. Is she going to bring him down and say, "You're the old pro, you knew these guys, I need your help. You're my Bobby Kennedy. I need you here with me." Is she going to do that?
She would be foolish not to. But I will say this, I mean, I think the reason she wants to be president is she wants to be able to control Bill's Secret Service detail.
You know, it took a long time for you to get cheap. Haley. We're gonna strike that from the
you know
record.
what?
Let me ask you about Bill Clinton's role, his real role. Not his PR, not his hubby, not his Big Bill, not his Elvis and all that stuff, but his real importance, if we do elect Hillary Clinton, in our country's future. I want to know if he has a critical strategic importance, and we ought to damn well think about that, because he's going to be there probably more important than the vice president. Let's be honest about it. He's going to be more important than whoever gets on the team. So my question to you is he going to be in that important role or not?
I think he's going to tee off with many of those Republicans over the course of 4 to 8 years, and that is.
Will he
his
be in the
role.
room?
He doesn't have to be in the room.
Doesn't have to be in the
Nope,
room.
Nope.
She won't call him in.
Look, she doesn't have to call him into the Situation Room.
She
She
doesn't?
can get him in the
You don't think
kitchen.
she'll do that? Why not bring him in?
I don't think she has to.
Why
But
wouldn't
if
she
she
bring him
wants
in?
to consult former presidents of the United States and bring
No, him.
Barack and
Okay.
George W. and others, fine. But I
This
don't
is
think she's going
interesting
to carve out a
business.
special day and a special
No, I'm talking
chair
about you
for
don't
him.
have to be
No.
a cartoon here
And
about
besides,
this.
I think he would.
I'm telling
I think
you,
he
it's
would be
going to
a
happen.
fantastic
This is a
first
very
dude.
realistic scenario.
Take
We've been
those
through it.
Republicans golfing. Let them get their
Okay.
game back.
See how touchy everybody gets. So, we don't have a solution for ISIS up here. We don't have a solution. Let me ask you about the global thing we have, which is money, and that's energy. And that's the Middle East. Energy. That's the Middle East. Are we still a country that is basically grabbable by the Middle East in terms of prices on oil? Can they still grab us and take us down like they've done before in 73 and before? Or have we reached a point now with gas, fracking, whatever, have we reached a point with more aggressive drilling where we can basically say, forget it, buddy, we're here?
And renewables.
Where do we stand right now in
Yes.
renewal? Are we able to, can they still hold us prisoner like OPEC used to do?
No. No. I think with renewables, with liquefied gas and all of the other enormous resources we have, I think we're on the verge of energy independence, and we should use that to.
I think Donna used the right word, on the verge. If this
How far out?
If this administration would allow us to produce all the affordable American energy that is right here at our disposal, abundant, affordable American energy, then we would be the self-sufficiency,
Okay, we know that.
including Canada and Mexico. Just the U.S.
I
can't do
understand,
it.
I understand
But
that.
the three of us together. But right now, we're still seeing a lot of downward pressure on offshore drilling, downward pressure on federal lands. The $2.70 natural gas loses money generally if you're fracking, except maybe in the Marcellus Shale. There's a lot
Where are the candidates?
regulatorily.
Where are the candidates going to be on Keystone? Have they said it? Nobody said it yet, have they? Hillary hasn't said it yet.
Bernie has. He's against it.
Yeah. But not Hillary.
Well, I think almost all the Republican presidents will say by all of the above, we actually mean abundant, affordable American energy, not get rid of coal,
Okay.
get rid of oil. I saw Martin O'Malley said he's for 100% renewable, no emissions energy, electricity in 2050. Well, that means nuclear, except the environmentalists hate
Yeah, I
nuclear.
know. It's clean. Let me ask you about this scary thing, and I'm not going to knock it because I'm not sure I understand it, but Ted Cruz, who is a hawk, we know that, very tough guy in foreign policy, he gave an Armageddon scenario the other day, like yesterday. During the talks over the Iranian nuclear deal, he said if the Ayatollahs get a nuclear weapon, they can take it across the Atlantic on a ship, and they can shoot it up in the air near the United States eastern coast, and they can destroy with that weapon our electric grid and cause the deaths of tens of millions. What do we know about that? Do you guys know much about this? Because we've had this experience with hacking into our systems. We know that you can do things with the reliance we have on computer systems that are so sophisticated and so interrelated and therefore so fragile. Are we really facing that kind of a security threat in our immediate future?
And that's another bill that's stuck on Capitol Hill, our cybersecurity bill. That bill hasn't moved because of the.
Which
quote-unquote-
define the bill?
This is the bill that is presently before the Congress that would strengthen what I call our cybersecurity infrastructure. Look, I receive a notice every month now that I have the Protect Some ID because my security information was hacked. I'm not going to go back to
I
Hillary's
think
emails,
I think
but-
that's a scam. That guy called me the other day.
No.
He wanted $200 to get rid of my.
No, it's serious. I got
he
the
had an
OPM
Indian
letter.
accent. He had an Indian
I
accent.
got
He
the-
swore
I
he was
got the
calling from
letter.
California. And my son says, "Don't give him the money. He wants you to wire the money right now."
I don't know anything about Ted Cruz scenario. I tell you, after Sarah Palin spoke yesterday, I had to turn the TV off. I was energized, and I had to calm myself down, so I didn't hear that. But I would hope that these so-called, pessimistic outcomes and visions that we sometimes hear from the candidates, I would just hope that they could just sort of dampen their enthusiasm for that, because I think the American people don't want to hear that. They really want to hear what we can do, what we should be doing, and they want leaders who they can trust to move us forward, not take us back.
Okay, I want you each to say
Let me
something.
just say in answer to your question, generally, national security experts of both parties, a lot of people in the utility industry, and politicians of both parties are concerned that the electric grid may be the most vulnerable infrastructure in the country. I don't know all the ins and outs, but that clearly is something that's on people's mind.
Let's talk about the candidates of both sides as we finish off this. Then I'm going to give you a little bit of time to basically give your final conclusion of what you've been talking about tonight and capsulize it. First of all, I want you to you can start with Hillary Clinton if you want, and you can pick the Republican you want. You don't have to endorse them tonight. I want you to tell me why you're confident that that person, among the candidates, he's not perfect, she's not perfect, will be a grown-up leader of this country and will make the tough decisions they have to make and learn what they have to learn, like we're learning tonight, about what they have to do to protect this country. Tell me about Hillary Clinton, how you think she might meet those standards.
I think she has a great combination of skills. She's a great listener. She's pragmatic. She's tough. She's very well learned. She served on armed services as a member of the United States Senate. I think she was a fantastic Secretary of State. So I think she has the right set of skills to lead this country at such a time as this.
And the temperament.
Very much so. Very much so. She has a little bit of Tabasco in her, which is not bad. I like a little Tabasco. Meaning that I think she has a little fire in her belly. But overall, I like her temperament. But I'm not endorsing anybody tonight, but I think, 7 years ago, Hillary Clinton lost the nomination by just a few.
100.
Yeah.
No
just a few delegates. Right. So, I think she is going to run a vigorous campaign. It's not going to be an easy campaign. It will not be easy, regardless of which candidate emerged on the Republican side, but I do believe that she's superbly qualified to be the next president of the United States.
Last time around, I was so happy as an American that we voted more heavily for Obama than we said we would in the polls.
I remember.
We didn't have the Bradley effect. Tom Bradley was a great mayor of Los Angeles for 2 terms, and every time he was running for governor, he ran a couple times against Duke Majan, a rather colorless candidate. He lost, but all the polls said he was going to win. So I thought, oh my God, we got the Bradley effect coming. So the weird thing was about Obama, people were either embarrassed about being for him or changed their mind at the last second. Gender. Will the American people, older women, younger women, men of all ages, will they give us an honest answer in the polling going in? And will they meet the standard they set? And when they say they're going to vote for Hillary, will they do it? Are you confident of that?
I'm confident. Again, it's going to be.
If they say they're going to do it.
Yeah, I think so. Look, over the last 20 years, we've gone from 40% of the American people say that a woman can be president to now 92%. And back in 2007, it reached 84, 85%. And today, again, it's gone up. And, again, I just want to say something about CNN. CNN, as you know, has enlarged the stage. They're going to add another podium. So Carla Fiorina will be on that stage. And I think that's really good for the Republican Party, and it's really good for the country to see women in these leadership roles.
Agree. Haley, I don't know. Don't pick a candidate that you like. Don't say you're for him, but I have to tell you, you and I know Jeb, and I'm amazed how bad a campaign he's run, because he's a better guy than that, and I'm amazed. You can pick anybody you want, but tell me the merits of somebody on your side.
Republicans need, and first of all, let me just say about who we're going to nominate. Anybody that tells you that they can tell you who the Republicans are going to nominate for president will lie to you about other things. Nobody knows who we're going to nominate, and polling at this stage of the process is not indicative of the ultimate outcome. I mean, it is not predictive. We all know that, and
Right.
y'all all should know that. It's very rare that who's ahead in August of the year before actually wins the nomination. We need to nominate, in my opinion, somebody who's been a governor, knows how to run things, knows how to get people who are not for him on every issue or her on every issue to come together to get things done. I think that Hillary's going to run hard left, an Obama third term, that she thinks and her people honestly think that's the way to get the most votes. So we've got to run somebody that can not only win the Republicans, but can also win in the middle. I mean, that's the lane they're leaving up to us. So whether that's John Kasich, whether it's Jeb Bush, whether it's somebody else, I think that's where our campaign ought to be headed. The country, and I've been doing this, Chris, probably a little bit longer than you. I've been doing this 47 years. I worked in the 68 campaign. I've worked in every campaign since in one shape, form, or fashion. I've never seen the country as polarized, but the country is very oddly polarized, but pretty evenly divided.
Yes.
It is very, very, you mentioned Obama. You're glad to see Obama ran ahead of the polls. The other point I think worth noting, Obama is the only president in American history to be reelected to a second term with both a lower percentage of the vote and fewer actual votes than he got the first time. He's the first one in history. And my own view is he got that by making Romney unacceptable, not by saying, vote for my record and vote for my agenda. He didn't have an agenda. He just said, Romney's a rich white guy who doesn't care about people like you. And as you remember from the exit polling, that was the dominant point. By an 81 to 18% margin, American voters thought Obama cared more about people like them than Romney, which means over 60% of Romney's voters said they thought Obama cared more about them than he did.
Yeah.
So we got to avoid that, but we've got to run a campaign that not only keeps the conservative base, but wins the middle. And the right way to do that is not to try to go to just get as far right as you can on every issue and insult everybody who you don't like or isn't doing what you're doing. There's a lot of stuff. You know, I worked for Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was considered the most ideological president of the day, and probably was the most up until Obama, but he compromised on everything. You were there. You were on the other side from me where we working for Tip. He compromised on everything. He got things done. Bill Clinton got things done. The problem in this administration is not divided government. We got to have a president who leads. And that's what we got to elect next year. And the Republicans are going to have to offer somebody who both leads and who people in the middle can say, I don't agree with him on everything, but I don't want a third Obama term, and I feel comfortable with him or her.
Every time I hear this, I cringe. Because for the last 6.5, 7 years, I've seen a president who has said to the Republicans at every turn, let's find a way forward. Before he took office, and I don't relish saying this because I don't like to make excuses. But every time I hear this, I keep hearing that, you know, Ronald Reagan was great. Well, back when Ronald Reagan was president, you had 60 to 65% of members of Congress who considered themselves moderate. I came in with the blue dogs. There are no blue dogs anymore, okay? Ronald Reagan could forge compromises because he had Tip O'Neill and others, Gillis Long, who I worked for, who could find the Democrats to come together. Bill Clinton had 37, 38% moderates on Capitol Hill. Today you have a polarized Congress. President Obama, if he invited Mitch McConnell every day and served bourbon or whatever you drink in Kentucky, I'm from Louisiana, we drink something stronger, but if he invited Mitch McConnell every day, Mitch McConnell would just, you know, say, Mr. President, I agree with you, but I can't get my caucus. So Hillary's not running to any extreme to win because some of the issues that she's raising, she was in New Hampshire the other day. What was she talking about? She was talking about the heroin addiction and how we should treat that, how government should treat that, how communities should treat that. She's not talking about issues that the left care about. She's talking about issues the American people. So this is not going to be a left-right election. It's going to be a right-wrong election. And let me just say this about Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney, anybody who says self-deport, anybody who goes out there and criticizes and demonizes 47% of the American people who are working hard every day, and just because they can't get ahead is not because they want to stay stuck somewhere. Mitt Romney defeated himself. President Obama just won. That's my
Do
position.
you want me to answer the question again like she did? I'll pass on that.
Let me ask you about being a progressive. And it's a new term, the way it's used. It used to mean somewhere between liberal and centrist. Now it means pretty liberal, progressive. Progressives depend on a federal government being effective. I argue this with my friends, my family. I say you can't be a liberal unless you believe in making government work. Because as long as it's laughed at, as long as it's a disaster, it doesn't get things done, it's over-bureaucratic, it's over-invasive, and screws up, liberals can't win their argument because their argument going back to civil rights and Social Security and Medicare and antitrust, all the good stuff was done by the liberals at the federal level. How do you restore? I got to get this number. Back in the 60s, the Wall Street Journal, which is really good before you get to the editorial pages, it's really good. They asked, what percentage of you believe that the federal government can achieve the goals it sets out for? It was 75%. We put a man on the moon. We won World War II. You know, this country got things done. Factories were built. Guys come back from World War II on the GI Bill and became upper middle class. Everything worked because the federal government knew what it was doing. And today people don't believe it, and therefore I think it's a hard sell to be a progressive or a liberal because you can't say you get done when you promise to. How do you restore that confidence? How do you restore that government that actually can do what it can do without making enemies? How do you get that? Just a minute, because I know you guys don't benefit. You guys benefit from the lack of faith in the federal government. Republicans benefit every day the government screws up. Can Donna answer the question? How we respond? How do we? No, I want you to, because I want you to. You're the progressive. How does the progressives win back their number one asset, which is a successful, effective federal government?
We are the people. You know, that's the opening word. We the people. It's not we the government. It's not we the politicians. It's not we the lobbyists. It's we the people. That's what government is. Government is people working together to form a more perfect union.
Yeah,
that is what we
but
believe
your tool
as
is the government.
And yes, we do believe that government serves a function, not just in protecting our country, securing our borders, but also making sure that there is a safety net for every American.
Okay.
So I do believe that there's a role for government. There's also a role for the private sector coming together with
Okay, I'm not talking to being a socialist, but when we caught Osama bin Laden, everybody was happy because not only did we catch the bad guy, we caught him. We caught him. We did it. Our guys did it. That made us happy. It showed that we could do something. People want to feel that again. They want to know we can do it. Yes. And that's what I'm asking. If you keep losing, the conservatives always win because they say we knew it was a disaster to begin with, the whole federal government. Anyway, Haley.
Maybe people would have more confidence in the federal government if it worked better.
Right. That's our point. Okay. Well said. And look who I see.
We would have more trust in
our leader,
all our institutions,
our sponsor, our hero, better. Larry, thank you for this opportunity.
Larry, thank you.
Let's give our panelists a big hand.